Hey everyone, welcome. I'm Ivy from the Buddhist Practice Incorporated over here in Australia, and today we are going to dive into a profoundly transformative explainer on the beginner bodhisattva's journey. When we first step onto the path of practice, it can honestly feel pretty overwhelming, right? We know we want to attain wisdom. We want to forge the karma for Buddhahood, but the giant elephant in the room is, how do we actually do that when we haven't yet attained the power of wisdom? Like, how do we bring what is unborn to birth? Well, in our study session today, we are going to break down the exact foundational steps you need to take, and we'll look at the hidden traps that are waiting along the way.
So let's kick things off with a massive question. What is the very first thing that truly blocks us when we first start practicing the Dharma? Before we can build anything new, we absolutely have to know what's standing in our way. The source text we're studying today makes it incredibly clear. We cannot advance even an inch until we recognize our primary hurdle.
Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. The beginner's first step. 2. Unmasking the trap of greed. 3. The 5 tragic consequences. 4. Making room for wisdom. And finally, 5. Planting the Buddha seed. All right, let's jump right into section 1, the beginner's first step, identifying the obstacles. The text points out that our initial hurdle is affliction, or klesha in Sanskrit. And what's the most prominent affliction for a beginner? It's greed, known as lobha or raga. Now, when we say greed, we are not just talking about, cartoon villains hoarding giant bags of cash. Greed is literally any time we obsess over our own self-interest. It's aggressively chasing that corporate promotion, even if it means stepping on your colleagues. It's hoarding wealth out of fear, or constantly seeking social validation and fame. If you take a really close look at your daily desires, you'll see they almost always revolve around serving and maintaining your own interests. And this brings us to a huge paradox in our lives. Worldly logic tells us that grasping brings us more. Society screams at us, if you want it, grab it, grip it tightly. But the karmic reality dictates the exact opposite. Grasping actually leads to lack. It's a profound illusion. The karmic retribution of greed is that the more you center your life around your own self-interest, and the more tightly you grasp at personal gains, the less you will ultimately possess.
Which leads us perfectly into section 2. Unmasking the trap of greed, sharpening the blade.
I absolutely love this metaphor from the text. Instead of running from our daily frustrations, we must use them as a whetstone to constantly sharpen our minds. The text tells us this isn't something you can just casually read once and memorize. You have to polish your understanding every single day. When someone completely cuts you off in traffic, or when a coworker takes credit for your brilliant idea, or when you feel that intense urge to obsessively pursue a personal benefit, listen, those are your whetstones. You actually use the friction of those everyday afflictions to sharpen your awareness.
Think about it this way. If you only remember to be mindful for, say, 5 minutes a day, but then you continue to chase social media validation the rest of the time, you are essentially trying to chop down a massive, fast-growing redwood tree with a flimsy plastic butter knife. No way is that going to work. The damage you do to your greed is way slower than how fast it grows back. Your wisdom has to be solidified. A sharp knife represents a constant, unwavering recognition of greed in your daily life. Only when this understanding is totally solid will you genuinely not dare to be greedy anymore.
Moving on to section 3, the 5 tragic consequences. Let's look at the actual stakes of greed here. According to the Sutra on the 10 wholesome ways of action, there are 5 self-destructive karmic retributions we face when we let greed run the show. First, your actions of body, speech, and mind become fraught with constant hardship. Second, even if you do manage to acquire wealth, it's not sovereignly yours, meaning it can be easily lost, stolen, or plundered. Third, your merit and virtue just evaporate, leaving you without the basic provisions you need. Fourth, you end up holding a lowly status. And fifth, whatever you do actually obtain, it's far less than what you were seeking in the first place, all because of past stinginess and jealousy. Honestly, this is the ultimate standard for self-harm. Now, this quote is a total game changer. It's a single, concise sentence that encompasses the entire standard for attaining well-being versus falling into self-destruction. If you are not greedy, you will have whatever you want. The moment you become greedy, you will lack whatever you want. It is so incredibly simple, yet it completely flips our conventional worldview on its head. Truly knowing this, like deep down seeing things exactly as they are, that is having real wisdom.
By eliminating greed, we automatically eliminate the anger of not getting what we want, right? We eliminate the arrogance of demanding respect, and that allows us to truly live an open, magnanimous life. Imagine a life where you never get angry when things don't go your way. You shed the disposition of a petty person, someone who is constantly distressed by failure or gets wildly arrogant upon achieving success. Instead, you get to embody the calm, open appearance of a truly noble person.
So let's transition to Section 4, Making Room for Wisdom, the Role of Causes and Conditions.
The Buddha Dharma heavily emphasizes dependent origination. That basically means wisdom doesn't just magically fall from the sky on a Tuesday afternoon. It can only blossom if we actively create the proper causes and conditions for it to survive. This is known as hetu pratyaya. The wisdom of a bodhisattva only arises from the convergence of the right conditions. If you don't establish these conditions yourself, the fact that bodhisattva wisdom is wonderful, well, it has absolutely nothing to do with you.
Check this out. If you have spent your entire life establishing a profound relationship with the 5 poisons, greed, anger, ignorance, arrogance, and doubt, they are going to occupy almost all of your mind. There is literally zero real estate left for wisdom to establish a foothold. Because we actually derive a twisted sort of joy from these everyday afflictions, they completely occupy our depths. Wisdom simply cannot stay in your mind for more than a few seconds because it has nowhere to stand. We are so reluctant to let go of our greed because deep down, we mistakenly still believe greed is serving us.
Okay, bringing it all home with Section 5, Planting the Buddhist Seed, the Process of Cultivation.
So here is the dependent condition you must follow. You cannot expect the Dharma to arise within you if you aren't actively practicing respect, offerings, and compliance to the teachings of all the Buddhas. For someone who has cultivated the right causes and conditions, believing and practicing is actually extremely easy, and they experience immense joy doing it. To establish this, your very first step is absolute respect, making sincere offerings, and practicing true compliance. Because dharmas do not arise independently, they rely on these exact conditions to produce the effect of contemplation and, ultimately, realization.
Think of a seed. A seed is just an empty shell of potential until you actively nourish its embryo, right? The Buddha teaches that the great vow, the Maharatnakuta, is that foundational seed on the great way to Buddhahood. It contains the vitality and the gene to grow. But just having the seed isn't enough. You have to fill that empty shell with boundless merit and virtue. And that comes directly from your daily dedicated service, your respect, your offerings, and your unwavering compliance.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final thought to contemplate today. Knowing the tragic, self-destructive consequences of self-interest and seeing the beautiful reality of true wisdom, what choice are you going to make in your practice right now? Are you going to continue hacking away at your desires with a plastic butter knife, or will you use the friction of your daily afflictions to truly sharpen your mind? The great earth of all Buddha Dharma is waiting for you to build upon it. But the choice to actually plant that seed, that is entirely yours. Thank you so much for joining me for today's study session, and I wish you incredible clarity and joy on your path.